So today, we're going to trace the entire path a developer takes, starting with just a single line of code and ending up with a full-blown application running in the cloud. We're going to break down how a modern web app really gets built, and the engine driving this whole thing, it's Node.js. Let's dive in.
I mean, think about it. The apps you use every single day, the ones that feel super fast, responsive, and just work. What's the secret sauce? What's that engine humming under the hood? Well, a lot of the time, it's what some people might call the magic of Node.js. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're taking what seems like a super complex tangle of technology and laying it out as a clear, step-by-step journey that makes total sense.
We're going to follow the exact path a developer walks. It all begins with the spark, that very first idea, that first line of code. From there, we build the foundation to make it a real thing. Then, we give our app the brain, so it can actually remember stuff. And finally, we'll add the polish, getting it secure and ready for the world.
You know, every massive application you've ever used started somewhere. And with Node.js, that starting point is unbelievably simple. It really does begin with just one little command.
So what is Node.js really? Well, for the longest time, JavaScript was basically trapped inside your web browser. It could only do things on a web page. Node.js was the key that unlocked the cage. It let developers use that same JavaScript they already knew to run code on the server. This was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, you could use one language for everything.
And check this out. Look how quickly you can get something real working. You just create a file, write one single line of code, and run it from your terminal. Boom. That's it. You've just run a server-side script. It's that instant feedback, that feeling of, wow, I just made the computer do something, that makes Node.js so awesome to get started with.
Okay, printing hello is cool and all, but it's not exactly a web app. We need our code to be able to talk to the rest of the world. So let's move on to building the foundation, a real web server.
Now this brings us to one of the biggest, most fundamental challenges in all of programming. Let's say your app needs to grab some info from a database, and that might take a second or two. What happens in the meantime? Does the entire application just freeze up and wait? For a lot of technologies, the answer is yeah, it does. But not Node.js. It has a superpower.
And this right here is its superpower. It's asynchronous and non-blocking. Instead of waiting around for a task to finish, Node.js just kicks it off and immediately says, okay, what's next? It never gets blocked. Then, once that initial task is finally done, Node circles back to deal with the result. This is why a single Node.js server can handle thousands of connections at once without breaking a sweat. It's incredibly efficient.
Now, handling this whole do-it-later thing has been a journey in itself. Back in the day, we used something called callbacks. They worked, but they could get really messy, creating this tangled web of code people called callback hell. Then came promises, which were a huge step up, making things much cleaner. But today, the absolute gold standard is async await. It's fantastic because it lets you write all this complex, asynchronous stuff in a way that looks simple and easy to read, almost like it's happening one step at a time.
So how do we actually build our server? We use an amazing framework called Express. And with Express, one little line of code does a ton of heavy lifting. This line right here, it's basically telling our app, hey, when anyone visits the home page, just send them back the message, Hello Express. And just like that, you've created a working web server. It's that simple.
Our app can talk to the internet, which is great, but right now, it has zero memory. If you tell it something, it forgets it a second later. To fix that, we need to give it a brain, a database.
For this, we'll use a type of database called NoSQL, and a super popular one is MongoDB. Now, unlike old-school databases that have all these rigid tables and columns, NoSQL databases are flexible. They store data in these things called documents. And here's the best part, these documents are structured just like JSN, which is the language of JavaScript data. This makes it feel incredibly natural for a Node.js developer to work with.
And this is literally what a piece of data looks like inside MongoDB. See? No weird tables, no rigid columns. It's just a simple list of fields and their values. It's easy to read, and it's flexible. If you decide you want to add a new field later on, you just add it. No big deal.
But all that flexibility can be dangerous, right? It could lead to total chaos in your data. That's where a tool called Mongoose comes in. Mongoose lets us create a schema, which is basically a blueprint for our data. We can set rules like saying the email field must be a string and a valid email address, or that a password has to be at least 7 characters long. This brings structure to our flexible data, making sure it stays clean, predictable, and reliable.
All right, we have a working app. It can talk to the web, and it has a memory. Now it's time for the final and maybe most important stage, adding the polish. This means making it secure and getting it online so people can actually use it.
So how does an app know that you're still you when you click from one page to the next? The secret is something called a JSON Web Token, or JWT. The best way to think of it is like a digital keycard. When you log in correctly, the server gives you a unique, secure keycard. From then on, every time you want to access a protected area, you just flash that keycard. No need to enter your password over and over again.
Here's the play-by-play of how that works. First, you sign in with your email and password. The server then takes your password, scrambles it up using a secure hashing algorithm, and compares it to the scrambled version it has stored. It never stores your actual password. If they match, the server generates that unique JWT keycard and sends it back to you. Now, you include that keycard with all your future requests, and the server knows it's you.
And finally, the big moment. How do we get this amazing app off of our laptop and onto the actual internet? Well, there's a pretty standard three-step pipeline. First, you use a tool called Git to keep track of all your code changes. Then, you push that code to a central place online, like GitHub. And from there, a cloud service like Heroku can just grab your code from GitHub, build it, and run it live on the web for anyone to access.
And just like that, there you have it. We went from a simple hello message to a full secure web application with a database, all the way to deploying it live. You've now seen the entire roadmap of a modern developer.
So the path is laid out, the tools are clear, and the process isn't magic anymore. It's just a series of logical steps. That leaves us with only one question, but it's the most exciting one of all. Now that you know the journey, what are you going to build?